One of the things I just was struck by is how when I was a kid, when I was growing up, I often one of my main vices was anger. I would be fine, and then I would just lose it. And I remember even just as a kid, I have older siblings, and they all knew like the sign. They're like, yeah, Mikey was so like laid back, so easygoing. But when he did this, and when it happened was I'd bite my lips like this, kind of like make this face, like, well, we knew to clear out, because once they got me to a certain point, there was just this rage, right? This rage of just like, I will do whatever I can to hurt whoever's making me mad, right? Because just pick. I have these three older siblings, and they would just pick and pick and pick. And at some point, it was just like, that's it. And you feel so helpless, right? You just feel so like, I just want to hurt you so badly. But my older siblings, they're pretty tough and they're pretty big at the time. And I couldn't hurt them. They were basically invulnerable to me. And so no matter, I mean, I could sit there and they could even just, I got to a certain age where they ran away. But before that, like I would like swing, and just be like, whatever. My sister Amy would just laugh. And her laugh was this. Like this was her laugh. It was three he's and two ha's. It was he ha ha. It was this every time, because I'd be like, hitting and swinging as much as I could, and she just like glanced. It was like a gnat. That was nothing to her. She was basically invulnerable to anything I tried, and I was completely powerless. I was so mad. And grew out of that. Thanks be to God. Actually, one of the great miracles in my life is that God has relieved me. Freed me from anger as one of my principal vices. But I remember what it was like. I remember what it was like to be so mad and feel so powerless. And then in that, I'm just like, this has happened to all of us, right? We get to the place where we're so frustrated, just like, I just want to like do something, or I'm so powerless, I just want to, or we get so angry, I just want to hurt whoever's causing this pain. And for a lot of us, the object of our anger, the object of our frustration, the one we feel powerless in front of, sometimes can be God Himself. I don't know if you've ever experienced this, that like where you bite your lips like that. God, I'm so frustrated with what I'm going through, or I'm so angry at you for making me go through this. I want to hurt you. Have you ever been to that place of just, yeah, that frustration, that powerlessness, that anger of God, I want to hurt you. The problem in many ways is God is invulnerable, right? God is invincible. God is untouchable. We say, God, I want to hurt you, but God is unhurtable. I found this a lot when it comes to people who are atheists. A lot of times atheists they're not strict atheists, right? In the sense of, I don't believe God exists. They're not atheists. I think a lot of times they're just angry. C.S. Lewis, at one point, was a pretty famous atheist before he became a pretty famous Christian. And after he had converted, after he encountered Jesus and his life was changed, he wrote about this and he said he was a contradiction. He said his whole life was a contradiction. He said, maintained that God did not exist. I was also very angry at him for not existing. And I was also equally angry at him for creating a world. Because that's how we feel sometimes. I'm so frustrated. God, why did you I'm not going to believe you exist. I'm not going to trust you because I don't want you to exist because I feel powerless. You're invincible. You're invulnerable. And I can't do anything about this. You put me here. In fact, I don't know if you go online at all and watch like college debates sometimes. Street preachers or street evangelists, apologists talking to college students. And one of the big questions is not, it starts out typically like, okay, God doesn't exist. Prove to me that God exists. But it almost always comes to this place. And this is the main question of young adults right now. It's not the question of, does God exist? The atheist question It's, is God good? It's the anger question. Because if you've ever found yourself in a place of frustration or a place of suffering or a place of anger, it's just, I want to know the answer to the question. Is God good? And even before that, it's the question is this is his, in the midst of my anger, I just want to hurt him. So we have this, we have this. What is God? Do with that. We can be so frustrated, in such pain, and with such anger. I just want to hurt God. But he's invulnerable. So what does God do? This is remarkable. I think this is incredible. Into a world where there's people who are so frustrated and so suffering and so in such pain and so angry at God, what does he do? He makes himself vulnerable. Right? That's what God did. This is the whole story of Christianity. This is what we're entering into, right? So into a world where we are angry at God and want to hurt him. There's the incarnation. He makes himself a baby who is eminently hurtable. He enters into a life of poverty. He takes off any kind of sense of influence. He's not powerful. Jesus was not powerful. He wasn't known. He wasn't wealthy. He allowed himself to be misunderstood and rejected. And that's why tonight you heard this line in John's gospel. I would say there's a line in tonight's gospel that is the heart of the gospel. I would say this is a line in the gospel that is everything that we need to know if we ask the question, okay, is God real and is he good? And it's the line in John chapter 13 where John writes about Jesus. Having loved his own who are in the world, he loved them to the end. That line is the heart of the gospel. That line is the radical reality of the gospel. Having loved his own in the world, he loved them to the end. And to the end doesn't just mean all the way to the finish line. It doesn't just mean the whole time. It doesn't mean duration. The Greek is eis telos, which means basically to the fullest extent. Having loved his own who are in the world, he loved them to the fullest extent. He loved them to the end. So the question is this. Can I trust this God? I'm so angry at this God. I'm so mad at this God. Is this God good? Having loved his own in the world, he loved them to the fullest extent. What's his next movement? This is remarkable to me. His next movement is this. Fully knowing, he had come from God, is going back to God, fully knowing he's about to be betrayed, fully knowing he's in a place of danger. What does he do? He takes off his outer garments. And now I've been praying about this for so long. He rises, he takes off his outer garments. What is that? It reminds me of this. It reminds me of Genesis chapter 2 and chapter 3, right? So in Genesis chapter 2, here's Adam and Eve. And they can be in front of God, they can be in front of each other, and they're completely naked. In fact, it says, the man and his wife were both naked, yet felt no shame. The moment sin enters the world, they clothe themselves, right? The moment sin enters the world, they cover themselves. Why? Because at that moment, they realize I'm vulnerable. At that moment, Adam and Eve realize, they look at each other and realize, oh, you could hurt me, and you actually might hurt me. And so they cover themselves. In this moment, here is Jesus with his disciples, with his apostles, with his best friends, and also with his betrayer, and also with his denier, and also with those who would abandon him. And what does he do? In so many ways, he removes the very last degree of self-protection. That's what you and I do, right? In this world where it's dangerous, in this world where people can be mad at us, in this world where people might want to hurt us, we do everything we can to protect ourselves. And here is Jesus, God, who's invulnerable, who at this very last moment, what's he do? He makes himself vulnerable. He puts aside the very last layer of self-protection in the midst of his foes, in the midst of his betrayer, in the midst of his denier, in the midst of those who would abandon him. Because why? Because having loved his own in the world, he loved them to the end. He loved them to the fullest extent. And what we do? I don't know if you've noticed this, but with our frustration, with our suffering, with our pain, with our anger at God, he makes himself vulnerable. And what does God do? What do we do every time God makes himself vulnerable? I think this is worth praying about. Every time Jesus makes himself vulnerable, we try to hurt him. Right at the incarnation, at the birth of Jesus in Bethlehem, what happens? Well, Herod sends out his soldiers to kill him. When Jesus goes to Nazareth and reveals himself, he makes himself vulnerable. And what do? They try to throw him off a cliff. That Jesus is teaching, and he's saying, okay, this is actually my heart. What do people do? They twist his words. They almost intentionally misunderstand him. When Jesus actually even reveals his identity, he says, before Abraham was, I am. There's something so vulnerable about saying who you truly are. And Jesus, when he says who he truly is, they pick up stones to kill him. And in this moment, tonight, on this Last Supper moment, having loved his own who are in the world, he loved them to the end, and he removes his outer garments. And what happens? He washes Judas's feet. And afterwards, Judas gets up and hands him over. This whole time, God makes himself vulnerable. This whole time, we try to hurt him. And this whole time, what is he doing? Having loved his own in the world, he loved them to the end, to the fullest extent. No, I think this is interesting. This is just actually, I would say this, knowing our own hearts, it's not remarkable. It's not remarkable to maintain that we want to hurt him, that we want to hurt God. Here's what's unbelievable. The unbelievable thing is not that we want to hurt him. The unbelievable thing is that he lets us. Just pause on this for a second. Here's God who's good, who loved his own in the world and loved them to the end. And yet here we are with our broken hearts, here we are with our suspicions and our frustrations and our suffering and our pain, our anger directed against God. It is not remarkable that we want to hurt him. What's unbelievable is that he lets us. And why would he do this? You know that for the first bunch of hundreds of years of Christianity, one of the ways in which the gospel is proclaimed is was by describing a courtroom scene. And the courtroom scene is that here we are, here's humanity, and we're guilty. Here I am, and I'm guilty. Here you are, and we're guilty. We're on the stand, right? And so we're guilty of our sins. We're guilty of not loving each other. We're guilty of hurting each other. We're guilty of doing evil against God, breaking his commandments. And what's God's answer to our guilt? The Christian answer is, God's answer to our guilt is the cross, right? That Jesus on the cross bore the weight of our sin. So here I am, I'm guilty. And God's answer is, then I'll take your guilt upon me. God's answer is the cross. That it's by his wounds we're healed. By his stripes we're made righteous. By taking the cross up, he bore the weight of our sins, right? So when I'm guilty, when we're guilty, God's answer is the cross. But something happened in the last 100 to 150 years. There was a shift. There's a shift in humanity. And this shift of humanity is not, hey, I'm guilty of sin. The shift is, God, you know what? You're the one who made this world. You're guilty. Right? It's that anger we have. It's that frustration we have. It's that suffering we have. And so what's happened is the scene is the same. It's a courtroom scene. But instead of us being on trial, we have put God on trial. Instead of us being like, I'm guilty, what we do as modern people is we say, God, you're guilty because you made this world with all this suffering. You made this world. You put me in this place where I'm so frustrated. I'm so hurting. I'm so angry. And so you're guilty. The remarkable thing, again, is that when we were guilty, God's answer is the cross. When we say, God, you're guilty, I can't trust you. I feel so much pain and so much suffering, so much loss. I can't trust you, God. You're guilty. What's God's answer? It's the same answer. God's answer for our guilt is the cross. And God's answer for our lack of trust is the cross. Why? Because not only does the cross, Jesus on the cross, expiate our sins, right? He took our sins upon himself. It also is the solution. It's also the answer. It's also God's response to our anger, his response to our frustration, our response to our feeling powerless. It's our response to our not trusting him. God says, okay, this is how much you can trust me. Not only this is how much I love you. He stretches out his arms and dies on the cross. This is how much you can trust me. And he stretches out his arms and dies on the cross. We can experience so much frustration and so much pain and so much anger that we just want to hurt God. The remarkable, unbelievable thing is that he lets us. He lets us so that he can deal with our sin, and he lets us so that he can heal our broken hearts. And he did this. Why? Because he loved you. You are his own. And he loves you to the end.